You know, let's go back to the Loss Prevention Conference. I mean, that is the biggest loss prevention conference in North America, if not the world. You know, and there's a lot that goes behind it. You know, and there's 3,000 attendees every year. And from what I understand, years ago, I heard a fact that it was 33% of them, or 33% of them, were first-time attendees. And that's got to be awfully intimidating. I mean, I remember coming 25 years ago, for God's sakes. What do you suggest for first-time attendee, Gary? Is there any advice that you'd give a young executive that comes to the NRFLP show for the first time?
Absolutely, and I sure wish somebody would have given this advice to me a while ago as well. And Rich alluded to it earlier, but it's really have a plan. You know, look at the pre-conference material, look at the courses that are being offered, come up with an agenda of what you want to accomplish while you're there. To your point, there's a lot of people in attendance, the exhibit hall can be overwhelming, the educational sessions are many. Deciding where you want to go, what you want to get out of it is really key. I would add to that, determine what it is that you want. You know, perhaps it's something like, today I want to meet 5 new people. Perhaps it's I want to see a vendor to talk about this problem I'm having. Maybe it's here's 3 things I want to get out of the sessions while I'm here. Again, know what success looks like so you can meet that when you leave. To me, it's akin to driving your car and you have a GPS unit, but if you don't program it, it's really not helping you. So again, I would look at that conference material, have a plan, and then, as the adage goes, work your plan. And I would really stress to any attendee, let alone a first-time attendee, but you really do need to network, like I spoke to earlier. And I would suggest that breaking the ice isn't as difficult as some people think. As you're walking out of a session, you know, next to a colleague, hey, did you get out of that session what you wanted to? Hey, what did you think about this? And again, I think it's easy to introduce yourself, ask a question like that, break the ice, and then you're able to start that networking endeavor. Lastly, I would add on your agenda, have fun. There is such camaraderie in the LP community. There's events. You should walk away with really an energized spirit. So when you get back to your workplace, again, you can take those couple of nuggets that you learned and apply them. Reach out to those couple of new contacts that you talk to. For me personally, I absolutely come back after every year's conference, really re-energized, focused, and again, I think my employers have benefited from that.
Excellent. Joe, you have anything to add to that?
Well, I think, as Gary said, really get engaged. I still remember my first show and sitting across the dinner table at an after-party event with Sandy Katz and Steve Ippolito from Talbot's. And I didn't know anybody. I was a brand new director. I went there to learn about the industry and what was going on. And they provided some great advice. And Steve and I today are still very good friends, and certainly Sandy has played a great role at the NRF and in my career personally. So get engaged, stay engaged, and know that, as you mentioned earlier, there are a number of topics out there and the emerging trends and what you might be interested in. If you're considered an expert or you think you have some special skills, propose it as a topic. Volunteer to speak on the session, but make sure you show up and make sure that you're present and accounted for. And that's really the key to getting involved, and almost every successful person in the industry started doing just that.
And by getting the exposure.
That's right.
Yeah. Last question for you. Technology is just moving rapid fire. Where is it going? What does retail loss prevention look like in 5 or 10 years from now? Just your opinions.
Well, I think the game is completely changing. What we're seeing today, I call a technology collision. We have so many different parts of the business that are going to shift, and loss prevention professionals need to be on top of every single part of it. Here's an example. 10 years ago, when gift cards were launched, Gary Johnson played a great role in my career while I was with the Walt Disney Company, and he had rolled out gift cards. We learned a lot about the issues and challenges that other companies had experienced, and we were able to put in preventative controls. Today, we're starting to roll out technologies, and everyone's becoming the pioneer. Everybody's doing it a little bit different. So take mobile point of sale. A lot of people think that Apple was the first company to come out with mobile registers. Wrong. In Europe, they've been doing mobile point of sale for many years, even at restaurants to pay your bill. So mobile point of sale is now being deployed in retailers, large and small, across the country. And that will create a whole new dynamic of how data is managed, where sales are processed, how credit cards are rung up through the system. From a traditional LP point of view, imagine this. Today, your register is one big fixed box, a cash wrap with bags and a register roll and money in the drawer. In the future, that register will roam the store. You think you have great camera coverage today, but when your sales associates are allowed to process transactions in the fitting room, that's a whole different loss prevention proposition. Now change the way that people pay their bills and pay at point of sale. Traditionally, we've used credit cards, and over the years, the banks have evolved the security technology. The cards were embossed, then they added mag stripes, they added holograms and expiration dates and CVV2 numbers. All of this technology went into fraud prevention. Going forward, you may very well pay using your cell phone. So where we've trained 42 million people across the country to check the front of the card, make sure the signature matches, ask for identification if you're suspicious about a transaction, going forward, it's a cell phone. And my iPhone or BlackBerry looks just like yours. And what signature are you going to compare that to? And how will you distinguish that user from another? So this is going to involve retailers working closely with the banks and with the service providers in their R&D efforts and the way that we roll the technology out into the field. And then take issues like e-receipts and having an e-receipt mailed to your personal box. You're now getting more information from a customer than you've traditionally had, and you're not giving them the paper copy. On the very simplistic end, a company like a wholesaler that checks receipts at the door, if they ever want to go to e-receipts, we'll need to rethink their entire process. There's no paper receipt to look at. But on the other extreme, you have some stores when they make a shoplift apprehension, the first thing a shoplifter says, I paid for this. And the next thing an LP person says is, show me your receipt. No receipt, and it might result, or does result typically in a confirmation that you saw all 5 steps and you bring the person back into the store. But in the future, if there's only e-receipts, now that LP agent is really working straight off the 5 steps, brings the person back into the store, and will have to have the ability to quickly pull up those transactions to see if in fact the merchandise was ever purchased. And then in the country, we lost somewhere in the area of $14 billion last year as a result of return fraud, either from wardrobing or from people stealing and returning merchandise to the register. And with e-receipts now, where retailers have printed their own receipt on watermarked paper that's secured behind the register and considered one of those higher risk items, going forward, a customer will print on their own piece of paper in the comfort of their own home. And oh, by the way, they can make 20 copies of that receipt. So the technology behind the scenes will have to have the ability to manage those transactions, and returns management. The whole game really changes. Otherwise, you have customers buying discount items at another store and just doing repetitive returns to your store with what it looks like an authentic receipt. And then the way credit cards are processed, the technology behind credit cards overall, touchless pay. When we now use our mobile phones or a card on your keychain without ever swiping, without ever seeing a number, you just wave it over the reader. That adds some issues with no physical card or no physical device at all. Also, there's the possibility of hijacking the number or compromising the number. So we're seeing some of that now with RFID chips, and going forward, we're going to need to make sure that LP folks, as well as the service providers, understand those vulnerabilities and put in preventative measures over them.
So the intellectual demand on the LP executive in the future is going to be greater. They're going to need to be much more tech savvy, in line with all of these developments.
Well, it's going to be twofold, right? One is they need to be more tech savvy. They certainly will need to understand all the new systems coming down the road and how they interconnect to the industry. So every LP executive today needs to have some role in the IT steering committee. But I also think that now more than ever, and luckily we've paved the road for some of this, LP executives need to get to the service providers and need to get to the R&D level. So as applications are being developed and as systems are being purchased to run the new point of sale system or run the new returns management system, the LP influence is there. And by that engagement, by showing up at the conference and presenting on that information, by communicating to law enforcement and to your colleagues in the industry, you really can help now pave the way for what is the preventative technology we use in the future. Because crime is really a game of cat and mouse. We're going to build a bigger trap or a taller wall, and criminals are going to find a way through it, around it, over it, under it. We need to be on top of this today, and we're going to see these technologies in 2 or 3 years from now, so it'll be time well spent.
Absolutely. Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you for taking the time to meet with us today. And that's it for the LP News Network edition here from New York City at the Jacob Javits Center. And I want to thank all three of them for appearing with us, and I hope it was educational for you. Remember, next time you're in a store, it's all about the partnership.